today in Rich in Relationship. We're going to talk about
Why your wife, why a woman might say she loves you and then show up in a way that doesn't feel like love. Do you feel like you don't understand your wife anymore? Do you see a woman who is excelling at work? She's kicking butt. She's smart. But when she comes home, you just feel like she's not there for you. We married the person that we married because we saw that together we could become someone more than either of us dreamed. And the marriage itself is the vehicle for doing that. My name is Rich Heller. Welcome to Rich in Relationship. And today we're talking about how women have adapted to a world where the institutions and a lot of the thought process have been driven by men. And if you're a man listening to this, there's a lot that you need to learn here. So stay tuned. If you're a woman listening to this might help give you some insight into why the things that are working for you out in the world, at work and other places, aren't working for you so much in your marriage, right? Let's just get this straight. We have our partners, we have our immediate family, we have everything outside of that. And work is a big part of that for most of us. And most marriages, the man and the woman are working. Most. And so the strategies that we use or the behaviors that we've learned at home to help us combat some of the inequities of the world around us don't always work in our marriage. But there's definitely things happening in our marriage that might bring that up. So the last episode was all about men and maladaptive behavior that men have, or some of the personas that they put on that may or may not work for them in every environment. Today, we're talking about the other half of the coin, women. I'm wondering, I'm going to talk to the men first. Do you feel like you don't understand your wife anymore? Do you see a woman who is excelling at work? She's kicking butt. She's smart. But when she comes home, you just feel like she's not there for you in the way that maybe when you were at that magical stage in life called in love, you were really present for each other. Where did that go? Or, now let me talk to the women. Are you kicking ass at work and you feel like your husband's just like the rest of them? Why can't he show up like that partner you fell in love with? Well, thinking about these worlds and relationships differently, both of y'all, is going to help you to understand. And through understanding, through the lens of understanding the behavior, where it works and where it doesn't, or the behavior receiving, why it isn't working for you, and how to address it, that's going to help you to begin. Awareness is the first step, right? And there are 4 steps to change. Step 1, be aware of any old stuff, behaviors, beliefs, emotions, hurts, traumas that might be getting in the way. Step 2, create a strategy now that you've cleaned the deck. Step 3, act. And step 4, keep your eyes on the prize as you move forward. So this is about identifying what maybe needs to be let go of. And I want to be really clear, men. I am not sitting here giving you an inventory of what's wrong with your wife. I am helping you to understand why she's acting the way that she does and why your reaction to her isn't working. All right. You need to get it. It's a dynamic. This is not a she's wrong and I'm right. He's wrong and I'm right. That dynamic, that will kill your marriage. This is about understanding why you do what you do so you can stop doing it, so you can pull the plug, and so you can let go of the old stuff. So let's start with, and we've talked about this in some of the previous episodes, let's start with what societal circumstances that have driven certain strategies and behaviors. And the obvious one is, though we are moving towards a society of inclusion and equality, and we love to believe we're almost there, the fact is that at least on an institutional level, if not on an unconscious bias level, there's still a lot of holding men up over women. Now, some of you are thinking holding white men up over women, and it's true. In America, the white man has been at the pinnacle, but the fact is that men of all races, creeds, and colors got the vote before women. Just wrap your mind around that. Through amendments, African Americans went from being, 3/5 of a human or something like that, to being full-fledged citizens. And African-American men were given the vote, but not African-American women. So it isn't just, this is beyond, this is the worst of the worst here, right? The oldest and worst misunderstanding about equality is grounded in gender. Actually, let's throw that word out. It's grounded in sex of birth. Sex of birth. All right, I want to speak in those terms because there are a lot of people who feel like gender is fluid, and I'm not disagreeing. Just to get out of any arguments that are unnecessary, we're talking about the sex you were born as physically. And if you were born as a woman or perceived as a woman, you were seen as less than. You were seen as less than before the lens of race, before the lens of money, before any of those other lenses. Those other lenses were less important in terms of the less than perspective. And so women have, over centuries, evolved strategies, and those strategies have become personas that they wear in order to succeed. And some of the strategies are newer than others, though I'm going to guess historically you could trace them back a long way, and some of them are freaking ancient. These roles, personas, strategies, behaviors, stances, whatever you label you want to put on this, have helped women to get their needs met in a society that was structured to put them second, maybe third, maybe fourth, depending on your perspective. Because the fact is that nobody is going to tolerate being less than for too long. If they can't fight the problem directly, they will find ways, indirect ways, to get what they feel they deserve. In fact, not only have women survived using these roles, but many of them have actually thrived in specific contexts. And the challenge is recognizing that the strategy, persona, behavior, whatever we're going to stance, whatever we're going to call this, that helps a person who's being treated as less than get some, if not all, of what they deserve, may not work in a partnership. Because by definition, a partnership is equal. And I'm sure that as I'm saying this, and I'm just looking at all the guys who have rolled in to work with me who say that their partnership is equal, but they don't act like it's equal. And so, ladies, I get that that happens, right? There's a difference between, I'm going to say this for the men because I'm sure the women really get it. There's a difference between a belief that men are better than women and stronger than women. We call that today toxic masculinity. And a bias. A bias is often unconscious. We don't know it's there. And what we see in our institutions is not toxic masculinity. We see bias has been built into all of those institutions. And let me just talk for a second about it. Like, guys, in case you're going, what the hell is he talking about? Let me just talk about what that means. In the legal system, for example, there's a bias, not just in how the laws are set up. In fact, the laws themselves may now read as unbiased, but in the execution of the laws. Let's throw out the police force. Let's just look at the court system for a second. The court system is created as adversarial, and a judge in a court system decides what perspective is most valid against the backdrop of the law. And very often the way that's done is people go in and make arguments about their perspective, and they make arguments about how that perspective is connected to the law, and they draw on case law and all the ways those laws have been interpreted in the past. And the judge makes a decision based on all the case law that has gone before. And it's very rare that a judge will go against case law. Usually something gets kicked up to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court is where that might happen, depending on who's there, right? Well, that's a very male way of doing things. Men love to fight things out. They love to do battle. They love to look at the facts and pull the emotions out of it. They love to consider things in a very specific context without seeing how it impacts everything else. And the fact is that there's a whole feminine way of doing things. And the next episode is going to be all about what makes a feminine way of doing things and what makes a masculine way of doing things, if you're wondering why I'm saying that. It sounds sexist the way I talk about it. And it could be, But what I'm talking about is grounded in science, and maybe science is biased. What do I know? But the brain science around this shows that brains that evolve in estrogen, those are people who are born with the chemistry and sexual structure of women, have a different way of thinking and operating than brains that have evolved in testosterone, which are those who are born with masculine parts and masculine chemistry. All right, let's just throw out gender. We're talking strictly about parts chemistry. That's it. Genetic background. It's a fact. This is a fact that the way the brain operates in these two structures is different. The testosterone-driven brain tends to be more linear. There has to be a right answer, one right answer, a way to get there. The estrogen-based brain is more ecological. It wants to understand all the different perspectives, see the impact of any decision on all those different perspectives, and even balance it out because it's wired differently. The court system is linear. That's just a clear-cut example of institutionalized masculinity. And so we see that not just in the court system, we see that in the corporate structure, right? Corporations were created as legal entities, and so by definition, those structures have come out of institutionalized masculinity. We see that in not-for-profits, for-profits, and the only exceptions are companies that are founded by women and founded on feminine principles, let's call it. Inclusion, in many ways, is a feminine principle. The concept of inclusion. Inclusion means everyone needs to be heard from, and maybe even equally. A majority of the structures in America embrace the concept of inclusion, but haven't succeeded yet in fully implementing that as part of their culture. There's a big cultural shift that's catching up with the conceptual shift that you ladies have driven since the 1920s or earlier. And thank you for driving it, because it is a disadvantage to men to operate in this environment. It does not challenge men enough. It does not challenge men to explore their own femininity. It does not challenge men to grow in the areas where they're weak. And women have been challenged and have grown. They've been challenged for thousands of years. And that's where these personalities, behaviors, strategies, stances, ways of operating have emerged. I gotta go back to my notes because I just went off on a rant, and let's write in alignment with it. So let's start talking about some of those personas, because I've made my case. Whether you agree with it or not is something else. In fact, I would love to hear from you. If I'm pushing your buttons, I want to hear from you. If you agree, I want to hear from you. If you think I'm a sexist dog, I want to hear from you, because I am. I'm a guy. I have a guy way of looking at things, but I'm open. I'm willing to see things bigger. And guys, that's all that any woman is asking from us. Yeah, we are hardwired to be linear, and they're asking us to be a little more ecological. So let's go there. Anyway, back to these roles. The roles come in 6 basic flavors. There could be mixes of flavors. A woman can flip between these, but the number one noticeable role is the alpha female. Next most noticed role is the seductress. We see these roles playing out on television all the time. There's the perfectionist or overachiever. There's the martyr who's giving up everything for their family and their husband, or maybe society. There's the passive-aggressive communicator. These are people it's really another side of martyrship. They're communicating in ways that are not always as direct as it could be. There's the emotional over-processor, just very emotional and very intense. And I feel like I'm missing one. I got the alpha. I got the seductress. I got the perfectionist. I got the martyr. I got the passive-aggressive communicator. And I got the emotional over-processor. Those are the 6. And again, these are, what I'm sharing with you are stereotypes or models. And so when you look at your own behavior, or when you're looking at a woman's behavior, or really in particular, since I'm a marriage guy, when you see one of these showing up, you want to identify what it is, get that they're not doing something to you, that they're advocating for themselves in some way. Maybe you're probably triggering this reaction. So let's start with the alpha. The alpha is I get a lot of alpha female clients um, who are bringing their husbands in. Alpha females tend to be super accomplished. What they're basically the alpha female, what they've done is they have learned the institutional game of the organizations that they're working in, whether they be attorneys, whether they be CFOs, CEOs, COOs, whether they be salespeople, whatever it is, they have learned the game and they're out linear thinking the guys. They have so embraced the masculine side of themselves that they're driven. And they will steamroll over in a marriage, they will sometimes steamroll over you. Or sometimes they'll show up as they just won't notice. Maybe they don't notice what you're feeling. They might flip into one of the other roles, but there's never for the alpha, there's not a lot of space for what's going on with you. There's what they want done, there's how they want to get there, and how you're not stacking up. All right. And, this is hugely successful in the corporate world. And when the women who come and work with me on this, they're typically either in the divorce process, trying to figure out how to disentangle themselves from their husband, or they're coming to me with their husband because they want to figure out usually their husbands breach trust with them in some way, and they want to straighten him out or the marriage is incredibly dysfunctional and they don't want to get divorced. And so the husband brings them in and they come in as a couple. But inevitably, the breakthrough happens when the two things happen. The woman gets that this role is very effective in some scenarios, others. And with the couples who are trying to actually, there's a fourth scenario, which is in parent coordinating, where there are two alphas fighting over what's best for the kid. But what works in all of those scenarios is when the husband gets that they need to stop butting heads. Right, because the more that they show up as a linear competitive male, the more they pull out the alpha in their wife, because that's what their wife has been fighting in the other environments. And so, guys, if you've got someone like this in your life, this is what won't work. I was listening to Rich Heller talk about this persona, and you really have a problem, and I want you to fix it. That's a male linear approach. What will work is to embrace a feminine stance and call her into it. And she will, by the way, the alpha woman will out feminine you because she's hardwired for it. But you need to step into it and by doing the following. Hey, honey, I see that you want to get to this place with our family, and I get that a lot of my behaviors aren't working here. I really want to understand, please. I really want to understand, right? Like first, you want to make sure she feels heard. And so you need to set aside your masculine desire to fix the problem, set aside your masculine desire to do battle and just listen. And then you need to start listening for what are the different areas in life that are impacted by this place she wants to go in the marriage. And is she calling them all out? What is the impact on your children? What is the impact on your parents? What is the impact in your community? What is the impact on your home? And then if you really are ready, once you've reflected to her that you really understand and you've helped her to explore all these areas, she will naturally start to slip into a more feminine role. You may then have the opportunity to alter the kind of dialogue that you're having together. But you need to get that you are driving this behavior in your marriage because you're acting like all the guys she works with. And so the only way to pull her out of it is to act like the woman you would like her to be. Not that you can really be the woman that you like her to be, but you need to have the empathy and compassion to do that. And the reason why I end up working with a lot of couples on this is because men suck at this. You guys suck at this because you haven't had to. The institutions are stacked up in your favor. So you haven't had to think like a woman for the most part, most of you. There's exceptions. I know that was true for me. All right. We're going to have a lot of time and we got 5 more things to talk about. So let's talk about the seductress. We all know this persona. This is the persona that instead of beating the male at his own game by competing with him directly, beats him by tweaking his weakness. And they say the way to a man's heart is through his stomach. Well, the way to a man's thinking is through something else. And so the seductress seduces the guy, um, it might be just by being very attractive and showing some cleavage. It might be by being flirtatious. It might be by seducing him into something else that he wants. Seduction isn't always about sex, but it's always about, hey, I have something you want and I'll give it to you. And man, are you going to like it? Because men are suckers for that. Right? That's part of what the toxic men say they want. They want a submissive woman who's seducing them. That's a learned behavior. Now, there are a lot of men who find this very attractive. There are a lot of alpha males who find this very attractive, but you need to get that you're being pulled around by your libido, I'm going to call it. You're allowing yourself to be pulled around by your libido. And in the end, you are not going to get what you want here with this kind of relationship. And where you need to be with this is very similar to the alpha. You need to say, hey, yeah, that's awesome. And there's so much more that I want than this, whether it be a sexualized woman, whether it be a certain kind of lifestyle, whether it be certain accomplishments in work, whatever it is you're being seduced to, you're going to need to go big picture. Always the way to snap a maladaptive role, a role that doesn't work in your marriage, but might work in other places, maladaptive to your marriage, always the way to snap someone out of it is to call them into that space that they haven't felt. And in order to do that, by the way, you're going to need to stop attacking them. You're going to need to stop being unconsciously aggressive to your wife. And women, if you're hearing this, all right, if you want to step out of these roles, you're going to need to have a conversation with your husband about, hey, you know what? I get it that you're frustrated and angry. I really need you to take that somewhere else. I need you to go to the gym. I need you to talk to a counselor, a coach, a therapist. I need you to take it to God, to Jesus, to Moses, to Allah, Muhammad, whoever. But you can't bring that aggression here. Right, because I don't feel safe when you do it. I'm not saying I don't want to hear about your anger. I just don't want to hear about it in a way that is scary for me. Would you help me with that? All right, so let's move on. 3, the perfectionist. This is the overachiever. This is like, and guys love this one also because, and actually, let's go back to the alpha. The reason why men love the alpha is because they don't have to make choices when they're with the alpha. They don't have to take a stand. They can actually feel taken care of by the alpha. In many ways, the alpha is very maternal. The seductress clearly is appealing to the guy's desire to feel like he's in charge and he's the man, but very often helping him make decisions through bribing him with whatever it is she's seducing him with. The perfectionist is earning love through achievement, right? Guys love this because they love to see a woman who's giving them everything they want, in terms of taking care of the house, taking care of the kids, being the perfect mother, being the head of the PTA, or being a good earner and doing all those things too. And what you need to get is, so I'm going to speak to the guys first and I'll leave second. Guys, what you need to get about this is that they're underneath this, that woman can never do enough, right? They're so desperate for you to just love them for who you are. You need to get that hook out of your mouth of all the good things she's doing for you. Not that you shouldn't appreciate it, not that you shouldn't honor it, but the relationship needs to move to a whole nother foundation. And ladies, if you're doing this, um, this behavior will get you a lot of rewards, but it won't get you what you really want, right? Because in the end, people don't love us for what we do. They love us for who we are. Societally, the reason why this works is women have traditionally been rewarded for doing this. It's a hyper extension of what society has demanded for hundreds, if not thousands of years. All right, let's talk about the martyr. This might be very similar, but the martyr, the difference is going to be the martyr may not be about achievement. The martyr might be more about, I'm going to give up my fulfillment for this family without negotiating. All right. So in a healthy marriage, um, I'll give you an example from my own life. I recently said to my wife, hey, you know what? I need to make more money. I'm looking at starting another business. And starting that business is going to take a lot of time. And I know you're used to me being here and being present for you and really supporting you. How willing are you to sacrifice some time together on the front end for 3 to 6 months while I start this business up for more income, and what are the vehicles that we need to talk through? And it was a challenge for her because she really likes our life the way it is today. So do I. So that's healthy sacrifice. And she's come to me with things that where she's asking me to sacrifice for her. And the understanding is the sacrifice is short term. You understand it's mutual, not transactional. I want to be really clear, but every now and then, as individuals, there are things we need to do for ourselves for personal transformation. And the request is, would you sacrifice something so that I can go through this transformation? And my word to you is, I will do the same for you should you ask for it. Not demand it, ask for it. Okay, this is what a partnership is about. That's healthy sacrifice. What's happening with the martyr is they're sacrificing without a contract. I get it. My job is to sacrifice. Oh, yeah, you know what? You're right. My kids were wrong. Your kids were good. Let's be happy. They're avoiding conflict very often with sacrifice. They're avoiding personal fulfillment with sacrifice. And by the way, the impact can be devastating on the marriage and on the children, but it's a learned behavior. And again, it comes culturally out of a society where women have been burdened, have been pressed on. And so the attitude of martyrdom actually you can deflect a lot of criticism and deflect a lot of that stuff because I'm sacrificing, I'm doing the right thing. Great strategy in some environments, not in a partnership. And men, if you have a martyr in your presence, I would say first, show your appreciation for what they're doing. Second, let them know not only do you appreciate all that they've given up, but let them call out the partnership contract to that with them. Hey, I would like to sacrifice for you. What is it that you have sacrificed for us that you would really like, big or small? Let's move in that direction. But that is the most effective way to challenge the martyr. And, I know the criticism of the martyr is going to be, they're going to say, look at all I've done for you. Look at all I've given up for you. And the response is not, what are you saying I don't give to you? The response is, you're right. You have sacrificed a lot for us. I'd like to do the same for you, right? You need to slip into that partnership mindset. And if you are the martyr and you're hearing this and you want to alter it, and your husband has just been going along with you being the martyr, I would encourage you to think about what is one thing that you really want that would help you to grow personally. Doesn't have to be huge. It could be huge. Doesn't have to be. And just go to him and say, Brad, I have been giving up so much for this family. And I'm not going to tell you I don't love my family. And I'm not telling you you don't appreciate it. But there's just one thing that I need to do for myself. And it's going to require some sacrifice on your part and maybe even the part of the kids. But this is something I really need to do for me. Are you on board? And if they say no, then you've been doing this a long time and Brad might need a little help also. And your answer could be, well, let's go to a counselor. Or your answer could be, Brad, I'm going to be doing this anyway, and we can talk about it more, but you need to understand that I sacrificed so you could become a doctor. I sacrificed so you could have your Alfa Romeo. I sacrificed so that you could work whatever hours you wanted at the hospital. I'm just like making stuff up here. And it's my time now. And you're going to need to adjust. And if you don't, I need to do this for me. I'm going to move ahead anyway. And I don't know what's going to happen to our partnership, but this is what I need to do. And I'm not telling you my way or the highway. I'm just telling you I'm going to follow my way. And I hope that you get that I really need to do this. That's there's a lot of ways to lay this out. All right. Whew, I feel like I'm going really long today. I hope you have more than the treadmill to do. Maybe you're on the Stairmaster now. Let's get to the passive aggressive communicator. And I'm going to tell you that personally, this is something that I struggle with, having had many passive aggressive communicators in my life. But the passive aggressive communicator says one thing and does another, or they mean another is probably another way to put it. The passive aggressive communicator says yes when they mean no or maybe. But the passive aggressive communicator says, honey, you're so amazing. And underneath it is, I'm so angry with you. Sometimes they use all the right words, but all the wrong emotions. Men do this very unconsciously. Women sometimes do it very consciously. They're more aware of these distinctions. Women, by the studies on estrogen, you're going to find out in the next episode, show that women have more emotional awareness in general, is what I'm telling you. So it's not that I'm not giving men a break. What I'm saying is they're just freaking unconscious, right? This is another form of avoiding confrontation. It's another way of releasing the primary benefit of being a passive aggressive communicator from personal experience without blame. When I've done this, the benefit has been I get to release a pent up emotion in a way that doesn't draw a response, right? So, guys, if you feel like you're experiencing this, you need to look at what is your reaction when someone confronts you directly. Why is it that your partner is speaking to you this way? What is your part in it? If in order to help the passive aggressive communicator to be more upfront, and it's not going to happen overnight because it's a style that's developed over time in response to their family, in response to society, in response to you. In order to help them draw it out, again, it's about helping them feel safe. Ladies, if you feel like you're communicating this way, I would say, and you don't want to, it's not working for you anymore. Actually, there's situations where this works very well, and there's situations where it doesn't. Partnership is one of the ways that it does not work so well. I would say that start by finding a friend that you feel safe with, preferably a female friend, not a guy friend. You might build an intimate relationship, emotionally intimate relationship with a guy friend that's not appropriate for your marriage. Start with a female friend or a, a trusted advisor and practice being more direct. And to make decisions about what boundaries you need to set for yourself if the reaction feels unsafe from the other person, right? The key to moving out of passive aggressive behavior is first to make sure that all right, if when I express this, if the reaction doesn't feel safe to me, what will I do to maintain safety? That way I don't need to repress the emotion and express it sideways. All right, my final archetype that we're going to talk about is the emotional overprocessor, we're calling it. Um, it's just really, you know what we really call this? The drama queen. And there are male drama queens and there are female drama queens, right? The emotional overprocessor is having emotions all the time. They're having very extreme emotions. It's all over the place. And the obvious reason why this might work for a woman is what did I say earlier? Men really don't process emotions very well. When they see women becoming very emotional, they often panic and bow to them. They feel responsible. And so this behavior can be very impactful. It can be impactful in court, by the way. It can be impactful in any environment. It's a highly effective reaction to perceived injustice. And because men very often are operating from an imbalanced favors them frame, they feel a certain amount of guilt and responsibility and will give in to the drama queen over emotionalizer. So that's why it works. Um, what it doesn't work, well, the reason why it doesn't work in a partnership is because there's no room for the other person's feelings in this environment. Anytime the person expresses their feelings, the drama queen just expresses their perspective even more. It's all about them. There's a certain level of, um, I don't need to see your stuff going on in this frame. The way out of it, men, is to practice committed listening until they feel heard and the energy comes down. If the energy does not come down, then what you do is you say, hey, I feel like you told me that I got it, that I understood what's going on. It seems like there's still a lot of emotion here. How do we, it's very hard to have a conversation one to one with this level of emotion. What do you suggest we do? And that will give them the option to decide where they want to go with it. Should they not feel safe enough, they're not going to come up with a suggestion that works. Very often they will feel safe enough. Ladies, if you are finding yourself in this position, finding yourself managing your guy, making him feel uncomfortable, keeping him off guard with this kind of intense emotionality, I would suggest that you find a professional to talk to about your emotions, right? For all of us, self-care is the starting point. Making interchange is always the place to make outer change. And B, expressing to your partner what you need in order to feel heard without being intense about your emotion. And if your partner's not willing to go there, then reach out for some help. And by the way, for anyone listening, I want you to feel free to reach out. If you have criticism, reach out. If you want to know more about what we're talking about, reach out. If you feel like you need help, reach out. I get on calls with people and I often refer them to other professionals depending on what's going on. Or if I feel like there's a fit, if I feel like I can really help them, I may even make them an offer when I have space in my calendar. The purpose for me of what I'm doing here today and what I do when I talk to people is to help them have joyful and prosperous marriages. And my personal mission is to impact 10,000 lives. So every time you call me, I go from 10,000 to 9,999, 8,776, 8,775, et cetera, et cetera. Whether you work with me or not, I've helped you. And so I've impacted another life. What I'm about here. And with that, I'm going to say, I believe that many of us have slipped into these traps of relating back and forth to each other with behaviors, archetypes, personas, because we felt we needed to. And I believe that real partnership requires real marital partnership. Let me be clear. Real marital partnership requires moving from a transactional relationship, which is you do this, you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours, to a transformational relationship, which is I want to change and grow. Help me change and grow, and I'll help you change and grow too. Right? We all want to have a sense of purpose and fulfillment in our lives as individuals. We married the person that we married because we saw that together we could become someone more than either of us dreamed. And the marriage itself is the vehicle for doing that. And the conflict that you're having is actually the fertile ground on which that transformation can be built, even though it seems like it's what's destroying the marriage. It's not destroying the marriage. You're just not, you haven't found the way through it yet. So I'm challenging you to change the frame on what's going on in your marriage and see that if you have disagreement or even high level conflict, there is a way through that is better for both of you. And I encourage you to reach out, rich@richinrelationship.com, or go to my website, richinrelationship.com, and schedule a call with me there. I hope this has been helpful. And in the meantime, I want you to have a wonderful day and an amazing tomorrow.